How to get your financial house in order. We're going to be talking about finances today. I know a lot of us have issues about money, don't like to talk about money, but this is an essential topic. Even though you may not like to talk about it, I invite you, do not avoid this conversation. So many times we avoid it and then it ends up getting really bad. So do not avoid this conversation. This is an essential conversation, particularly for Black women, because when we think about finances has such a key role in any change that we make in our lives. So it has contributes to our wellness, the stress that we can have about bills and money and all that kind of stuff. But also when we're going to make life changes, finances always plays a big part. So it's so important for us not to put our head in the sand like I used to do all the time. We need to have this conversation. So sis, if you know this conversation about finances, don't click off, okay? You need to watch this conversation. I'm telling you, it's going to be good. We're going to share a lot of resources and information with you. If you haven't already registered for the Financial Masterclass for Black women, please do so. Again, it's January 8th and 9th, so it's coming up. It's coming up this week, okay? So 7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time. And we're going to share with you some more information about the Financial Masterclass, but we're going to share with you some financial nuggets today. So you're going to be leaving here more financially literate by the end of this conversation. If you don't know me already, I'm Dr. Kamani. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, a toxic job survivor, but more importantly, I'm a toxic job liberator for Black women. So again, the Financial Masterclass information is going across the screen and it's also in the description section. So I'm excited to have my co-facilitator of the Financial Masterclass for Black women with us today, Dr. Roche Brown. Can you please introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you for having me, Dr. Kamani. I am Dr. Roche Brown. I am also known as the Doctor of Rethinking because I help people to remix their thinking so they can make money, they can manage money, and they can multiply their money. So I am a financial psychologist. I like to help people with the money mindset that ultimately interferes with people's ability to practice all of the financial tools that are out there and available for them.
Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Roche. And I see in the comments, can't wait to learn more about how to get my financial house in order as I pivot towards leaving. Yes. Yay. So we're going to be talking about getting our financial house in order if you want to exit out of a toxic job, but just in general, as Black women, we really need to do better about our finances. Like we make the money, we go out, we do all these other things, but many times we don't really have the financial wellness that is important for us. So we're going to be talking a lot about finances today. Again, do not avoid this conversation. It's so classic that when we don't want to hear something, we want to deal with it, we avoid it. Okay. So let's kick it off and start talking about ways that financial fears, or what are the specific financial fears that many Black women encounter when they think about wanting to leave their toxic job?
Yeah. So there's a couple of fears, right? We always talk about the catastrophizing of like, I'm going to be homeless. What is going to happen? Right. So that's the most extreme level of fear, is like thinking that we're going to go to homelessness. Right. Mm-hmm. But also we have legitimate like finances and expenses that we need to take care of. So some of us have children. So that means your children, they may be, matriculating into different like grades and different things like that, maybe going to college, and you're like, oh my God, I'm anticipating other finances coming up soon. Mm-hmm. Or maybe we're even taking care of our parents on top of that. Maybe we're the breadwinners, in our family. Maybe we're single, maybe we are the breadwinner, even if we are partnered. Mm-hmm. And so it makes us feel a little bit more fearful about leaving, and how am I going to replace this good income? Particularly around the age group, I feel like has been most of our demographic, I would say, is that good between like 35 and 60, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And so especially during that time, it's like, you've got your good job. You almost settled in to like the best of the best.
Right.
This is supposed to be my retirement job.
Retirement job. Talk about that. What's a retirement job?
So a lot of people will feel like, hey, I made it to the job that's going to be like my forever job. This is the job I'm going to retire from. You're already ready to get locked in and stay there. Like, okay, this has good benefits. I love it. You know what I mean? Like everything's like going good. And so you think that you're going to stay there forever. And so when you realize like, oh my goodness, I still have 10 or 15 more years to go.
Ooh, yeah.
or even more. And this place is not the place that, I'm really going to be able to hang my hat on. That
Hmm.
also caused like an additional fear to say, now I'm older. Now I have to kind of get back in the game again, of looking for a job. And that can also cause a lot of fears.
Yes. So are we talking about concerns because of age? Like if you're there for a job for a while and the thought of going back into the job market
Mhm.
and the perception, I don't know, the perception
Mhm.
that I have to stay at this job to get retirement.
Right. So usually you stay at this job to get retirement because this
Hmm.
job probably offered you a great, like, retirement package
Hmm.
or benefit package. And that's
Hmm.
one of the biggest things when we think about benefits. It's like, oh my goodness, I want to have good medical and I also want to have a
Right.
good retirement. And so we find ourselves staying there just because, like, if I could just hold on a little bit longer, you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Then I'll be able to get these benefits that were promised me when I first started at this job. So I
Hmm.
think a lot of that, holds people there for a lot
Yeah.
longer.
Yeah. Yeah. And what about the possibility of concerns about age,
Yeah.
getting back in the
So
job market?
right. So when we think about like your age, you might be might be a little bit older than before. I don't want to be like a lot older, make it seem like so old, right? Like, but you're a lot older and you're closer to retirement age. And so you may not want to get back into the job force. You may not want to go back and have to, change that resume and get
Mhm.
back into interviews. So a lot of that, can make you feel a little bit more just fearful. And you may have just got into a place that you just got comfortable, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes we don't want to challenge ourselves to get anything better than what we have right now.
Yeah, because change is scary. It's
It
scary.
is. It is.
So let's say you're at a job and they give you this great so-called retirement package, but
Hmm.
you realize the job is, I cannot stay here for more than 5 years. Okay.
Yes.
So is there a possibility of that retirement being rolled over to
Yes.
another option, or do you totally lose that retirement?
So it depends. It depends. So you want to understand your company, right? Because there is usually a vesting period, right?
Hmm.
So when you're at a job, normally the vesting period for most jobs is about 5 years. Right. And so, like, if you stay there at least 5 years, then whatever you have contributed into your 401k or your pensions and different things like that, you're going to be able to get back.
Okay.
Right. So it's usually a vesting of about 5 years. I
Okay.
know that there's been other jobs that I've seen and even experienced personally where maybe at the third year mark, they'll give you 50% of what is vested, maybe 4 years, 75%. And then 5 years is usually like the sweet spot of like 100% of everything is vested at that point.
Okay. So can
Yeah.
you talk just a little bit about ways the financial masterclass will address the issue about retirement? And let's say somebody is vested, what their
Yes.
possible options are for rolling over that money.
Right. And so what you can do, there's a lot of different options actually around like rollovers. Okay. So you can roll over. Let me just talk about taxes, give you a little bit of information about how taxes work. So when it comes down to pensions as well as your 401ks, they all fall in the tax later category. So you understand like you haven't been taxed on them just yet. And
Hmm.
so in order to roll them over, you want to roll them over in a vehicle that falls in the same category, right? So you may roll it over into an IRA. You hear of a traditional IRA, which is
Hmm.
individual retirement account. So
Hmm.
you can actually roll it over into one of those, okay? And depending on which one you have, it can give you, as long as you're willing to wait, right? It can give you maybe even 70-80% return, right? For that. They have something also called indexed annuities. Okay, so an annuity is also a retirement vehicle. There's index and there's variable ones. The variable one is something that's in the stock market, so we know up and down, up and
Hmm.
down.
Hmm.
But we have index because a lot of times we're feeling like scared. I don't want to lose
Yeah.
money. That's
Right.
really what it is. I don't have no time to be
Right.
more money, so I don't
Right.
want to lose anything. So
Hmm.
an index option allows your money to go up when the stock market goes up, but when the market goes down, your money locks in and there's no loss. And
Hmm.
so the vehicles that like I even talk about inside the masterclass, I only am talking about helping you guys get the ones that are not going to lose money.
Right.
There's other options, right? Higher risk could be even potential higher reward, but it also could be higher loss.
Right.
We're just
I like
trying to
that.
stay safe, stay
Yeah.
safe.
Yeah.
So you have options of definitely rolling it over and if you are a person who's still young and you're like, well, this was still not enough anyway, and I
Mm-hmm.
need to also be contributing to something else, there's
Mm-hmm.
other vehicles that you can contribute to by yourself right now. So during this time, where you maybe go to another job or start a business, you can find your own retirement vehicle that you can be contributing to.
Awesome. So this
Yeah.
is a nugget of what you'll be
Yeah.
getting in the financial masterclass. So she gave you a little nugget, but you get
Yes.
so much more about this during the financial masterclass, which is so important because when we think about leaving a toxic job, many of us stay because of concerns about replacing income, what to do about
Yeah.
your retirement, and what to do about your healthcare benefits. So we're
Yes.
going to be talking during the course of this conversation. We're going to drop little gems for you, little nuggets
Yeah.
about what more information you'll be getting in the financial masterclass. So, Dr. Roche, as Black
Mhm.
women,
Yeah.
what would you say are some of the biggest hurdles that we have as Black women for us in terms of our financial health or our financial wellness? What are some of
Mhm.
the issues contributing to that? Because, as I mentioned before, growing up, like I saw my mother balance her checkbook, but
Right.
aside from that, we didn't talk about finances or,
Yeah.
investments or
Yeah.
anything like that. So what are some of the barriers that you see for many Black women with
Mhm.
us talking about finances? And why do you think so many of us avoid talking about finances?
Right. So a lot of us were taught, what I mean, within our generation, go to school, get a good education, get
Mhm.
good grades, right?
Right.
And then get yourself a good job and benefits, right? That's just
Yep.
kind of what is taught, what I mean, from, the previous generation. And so that's what we do.
Yep.
We stick to that. And nobody ever really explains to us what to do with our money or how to manage money.
Mhm.
So they might tell you the basics. So if you have at least a good family, pay your bills.
Right.
Right? Like we at least got that together, right?
Right.
Like you
Right.
might at least
Step
have the
one.
basics. Yeah, the
Yes.
number one. But even with that, a lot of people don't even share with you exactly how to do it. It's part of our like community that we don't like. It's kind of like a child stay and a child play. So you never really tell them what's going on in the financial
Right.
situation.
That's
Um,
adult information.
it's adult information, right? And so it's like people forget to transition from what is adult information to life skill information,
Uh-huh.
right? Like nobody, wait a minute. It's moment here where this person is 16, 17 years old, 18. They're about to start doing stuff. We need to teach them the life skills at that point of how to
Mhm.
go about managing money and even giving them a clear picture of what's even happening in the household. Oftentimes, even in the household, a lot of times because they want to make sure that the child, feels comfortable, right? We don't
Right.
want to stress the kid out.
Right.
That oftentimes either you're going to have like kind of two extremes where they're
Mhm.
going to still give you everything you want, even though they can't afford it, right?
Uh,
In the household. So
yep.
you'll just think money just keeps on coming and keeps on
Mhm.
rolling, right?
Mhm.
That'll change your patterns personally. You're like, okay, I'm always going to make it. And never the paycheck's going to come,
Right.
or it's going to be that other extreme where people are going to be like, I never got it. I never got it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like it's going to be that other, extreme. And what that does for us as we get older in our particular patterns is that then it's like, wait, I remember they never had it. Either I'm going to hoard mine to try to make sure I always have it, or I'm going to spend it like crazy, like they did. And so we kind
Mm.
of learn similar patterns directly or indirectly, right? People are
Yep.
not even really teaching us exactly how to do it, but we learn from their behaviors and we pattern ourselves in a very similar way.
Yeah.
So a lot of that, will happen for us.
Yeah. I'm even thinking about like credit card payments.
Yes.
So if we see our family paying the bare minimum or the minimum
Right.
due, then
Right.
we start thinking, oh, I just need to pay the minimum. But we
Uh-huh.
don't recognize how that puts us more into a financial hole
Yes.
of doing that. So, and I
Yes.
see in the chat, from a young age, we need to learn the essence of financial literacy. So true. These are
Yes.
critical skills, yes, because we will
Yeah.
continue to kind of fall into these kind of patterns and these
Yeah.
holes and not even recognize it. So,
Yeah.
what about avoidance? Why do you think that
Yeah.
so many
Yes.
of us avoid talking about or thinking about
Right.
finances?
Yeah. So I think it's a couple of different reasons. One thing that popped into my mind, and I say this because I love math and a lot of people don't. Okay.
Right.
Like oftentimes, even when people hear about math, okay, they get anxious. I taught statistics actually in graduate school, right? Which is already like, people like statistics. I hate that class, and I remember in the very beginning when I was a teacher, I would take a full class just to do like deep breathing. We would talk about like the CBT, cognitive behavioral theory, and we would say, like, okay, your beliefs are going to like, manifest whatever is going to be your result. And I would talk to them. So like, what is your beliefs around what's going to happen in this class? Because if you
Oh, that's
already come in
good.
thinking you're going to fail, right?
Yeah,
That's what you're going to do, then
right.
failure will happen because you will start having behaviors that will make sure that actually materializes, right? But if you can say that if I can work hard and I can ask questions,
Yeah,
while I'm in this process, then I can make it, you're going to
yeah.
have a different like result in the class,
So confronting the fear.
so that to go over the fear. Yes.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And so some level of avoidance is literally because people hate math. And part
Ooh,
of budgeting is, of course, like a simple addition and subtraction, right?
right.
And most of us don't want to deal with it. And when it comes down to percentages, that gets even scarier, right? So if we
Mhm.
look at like APR, which is your credit card percentage, we don't know what that means. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times we don't know what it means.
And it's what's the annual percentage rate?
The annual percentage rate.
Okay.
Yes. So a lot of us don't know what it means. You know what I mean? If they give you a 20% rate, you're just like, okay, I just have to deal with
Ooh,
that. I know, right? Like, so that
wow.
like 20%, 16%, whatever it may be, we just deal with it. We don't understand how to pay it back, right?
Right.
Like we don't understand what it means to the financing charges when we have that. So I
Yes.
think that can definitely like impact things. So
Mhm.
that causes one level of avoidance, right? I would
Right.
say is just the math. I don't want to do math. I'd rather avoid it. So I'm just never
Right.
going to do that part,
Right.
So
Right.
that's one thing. A second level of avoidance would be some of the emotional barriers that can happen, the more like psychological stress that can come along with even looking at our numbers as well. And now this could be stress that, it could even be vicarious stress that we just like learn from others and adapt it, right?
Mhm.
Everybody else around us always had all this fear and hesitancy
Mhm.
around finances. And
Mhm.
so we find ourselves just taking on what they did. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they were hush hush, never talked about it, just hoped and prayed. So we say we could just hope and pray too, right? So
Right.
then some of that can happen.
Right.
Then because we did not learn anything and didn't learn financial literacy, it can be money mistakes, right? So we may have found ourselves, the main one that I often hear that people feel the most fearful about is like the cycle of debt. Okay,
Ah,
this is what I always hear. So it's like you spend money and you're like, okay, I'm gonna pay it back. I'm gonna pay it back. But then life happens, right? Because
yeah.
life circumstances happen and you just forget, you don't do it on time. Maybe you're not being aware of your actual dates, right? You're
Mhm.
like, oh, it's due on the 17th, but I'm paying it on the 19th. So I'm constantly getting hit with fees. And it feels like I'm always crawling out of something, right?
Yeah.
And then you pay it off and you're like, woohoo, you take a deep breath, right? And then all of a sudden they start creeping back up on you again. You're like, well, how is this happening? And I feel like that
Mhm.
cycle of debt often will make us just like even more so avoid even more, right?
Yes.
Like
Yes.
it's just too much. No matter what I do, it's not
Yeah.
working. And
Yeah.
so that leads to a level of avoidance
Mhm.
because of what the anxiety feels like. And
Right.
on top of that, the shame, of ourselves, like shame is like, I am bad. You know what I mean? I'm feeling embarrassed. I don't want anybody to judge me for
Mhm.
this. And so who do I go to? Right? Especially if in my family, nobody in my family ever managed money well. Who would
Right.
I talk to? You
Right.
know, then like, you don't know a financial psychologist exists, right?
Right.
Like, so
Now
like,
you do. Now
now
you
you
do.
do, now you do, right? But you didn't even know that existed. You don't
Yeah.
even know, like, a lot of times we're looking for, even if you're looking for a financial planner or a financial advisor, like, I want somebody that looks like me and feels
Right.
like me. And then
Right.
also that doesn't seem, available or
Mhm.
as accessible to us. So
Mhm.
a lot of times we don't use those things. And so it just keeps us in this state of like suffering and
Yeah.
the level of avoidance.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, there's a lot of emotions attached to money and
Yes,
finances, which contributes to us avoiding. But the more
yes,
we avoid, the worse we feel. So the bills might come in, and we're like, "Oh, I'll look at it later. I'll look at it later." And
right.
sometimes we might say to ourselves, "Well, as long as I'm able to pay my bills, I'm okay." But you're
Yes,
not really helping yourself get out of a hole. You're like under survival mentality,
yes,
not thriving. So we're talking about how
yes,
to thrive, right?
right.
Not only survive, but
Yes,
thrive. The other thing I was thinking about when you talked about is that sometimes we might feel like, okay, I'm paying down this credit card, but you know what? I had a rough week at work. I deserve some new shoes, right?
Yes.
Or I
Uh-huh.
got this meeting coming up and I got to look really good. And you start
Yes.
spending money on a credit card. So the whole
Yes.
retail therapy in relation to a toxic job. Can you talk about that, please?
Yes, definitely. So, we have stress in our lives, and that is dictated by our cortisol levels, right? And so we have high cortisol levels. And one way in order to like manage your cortisol levels is getting like a dopamine hit, right? That's called our
Right.
pleasure center. And certain things that cause this dopamine hit can be retail therapy, right? So
Uh-huh.
actually purchasing something, it's not even the act of having the something, it's just the purchasing part that gives this level of like, oh, look at there. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so just purchase. You may not even wear the shoes for 3-4 months, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's just the going out and purchasing it can give like a feeling of relief, actually,
Right.
that will
Right.
happen. So it
Right.
could be that dopamine hit. It could be like, having chocolate, right? That's a dopamine hit. Just make you feel ice cream is mine. Okay. Might need some ice cream. So it could be that overeating that
Yeah.
can happen, or even wanting to treat yourself, right? Because our minds will
Mhm.
think like, I've had such a stressful life and stressful job, I should at least treat myself. I call
Right.
that like the YOLO mentality. Like, you only live once,
Oh,
you only live
yeah.
once. So like, I
Yeah.
worked so hard at my job. I
Yeah.
deserve these shoes. I deserve this nice meal. So we kind
Right.
of get into that cycle to even
Right.
make us feel better about being at the stressful job, right? Like,
Yeah.
at least I get all these things, these material things in order to feel better that I'm
Mhm.
at this particular job.
Right.
Even it could be smoking for some of us, that could be also like an area, of concern,
Yeah, yeah. And the thing about it is that all these things are short term. So it's a
Yes.
short term fix
Yes.
to the
Yeah.
bigger problem. The problem is a toxic job. So we're trying to
Right.
like make ourselves feel better, but not look at the root of the problem. The other
Exactly.
thing that that you made me think about was sometimes for those of us who get promoted, we make more money, we
Mhm.
end up getting in more debt because now we're spending at a higher level. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So I think that people think like once you make more money, all of a sudden you're going to just be able to manage it better. Right? Like, and that is not how this works. Okay.
Right.
So what ends up happening is that if you've never learned the skills, you know what I mean? When you were, having a part-time job up until you have your six-figure job,
Uh-huh.
what just happens is that you just continue to spend more and more and more,
Right.
right? Because your mind thinks you have so much, so
Yes.
you're like, oh, I make it more, so I might as well, like, continuously spend more. And so you still never learn these skills. Like I always
Yeah.
tell people, it took billions of years for both me and you to get doctorate degrees, right?
Right.
But nobody ever sat down and said what you're supposed to do with your money after you start making
Right.
all this money, you
Right.
know?
Right.
And a lot of us, I know me in particular, is that I, started out pretty early on making more money than even with what my mom made, you
Mm.
know, and my mom was able to make things work. You know what I mean? For so long, you know what I mean? And I was like, oh, I make so much more than her. Like I'll be fine forever, right? You never think like, wait, I'm gonna spend more and live a higher lifestyle, shall I say, that's going to actually cause me to still like develop like the debt cycles. And if I never learn how to save, I may
Yeah.
not ever do so,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Savings is a habit that has to ultimately be built over time,
Right.
and if nobody ever teaches us how to, or teaches us where to place our money, all of these
Mhm.
things really matter in our ability to like keep money for the long haul.
Right. And
Yeah.
even the part about savings, which we do talk about in the financial
Yes.
masterclass, again, even
Yeah.
the types of savings, right?
Right.
So
Yes.
many of us think, oh, I have a savings account, but we talk about the low percentage you're getting, but what your
Yes.
options are for something
Yes.
else, your money grows. So again, financial masterclass, we'll talk more about that. And I
Yeah.
was thinking about when we spend money on the shoes, the nails, the
Uh-huh.
clothes, because the job is stressing us out and we deserve and all the kind of stuff
Mhm.
that is contributing to our masking so that we
Yes.
look a certain way, even though we're hurting inside. And
Exactly.
again, it just contributes to us staying stuck at the job longer because we're
Mhm.
masking so much. The
Right.
other thing that I was thinking about is when we are in these situations, and you said a lot of this is influenced about what we've seen.
Mhm.
So something we talk about in the financial masterclass is the money story. We all have a
Yes.
money story.
Sure. Yeah.
So I think it'll be fascinating for the audience. I already know, but I
Uh-huh.
think it'll be fascinating for the audience to learn more about what is the money story, right?
Okay.
And what is your money story? Like, how did you even become a financial psychologist? Because let me just tell the audience if you don't already know.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Roche, when I was on a leave of absence from my very, very, very toxic job, I was working with a business coach, Dr. TK, and Dr. Roche and Dr. TK are friends. So one
Mhm.
day, Dr. TK had Dr. Roche come in and talk about she's a financial psychologist. And I was like, what? Oh, what is that? Okay. So I realized that the thing that was keeping me at the toxic job was finances. And I know I was avoiding finances. I know I had money trauma, all that kind of stuff. So I said, I need to work with an expert to help me. So then I started working with Dr. Roche. So before working with Dr. Roche, I never heard of a financial psychologist either.
Mm.
And the fact she's a Black woman, that just added, I was like, oh, okay, that's a no brainer. I got to work with her. Okay.
Yeah.
So now we're partnering for the financial masterclass. So can you tell us what is the money story?
Mhm.
Also, why is it important for us to know our money story, which again we talk about in
Mhm.
the financial masterclass? And
Yeah.
how did you become a financial psychologist?
I know, right? So it's so interesting. And I'll take a little bit more time to kind of tell the story a little bit. So, money story. What I always tell people is that you want to look at like your first money memories. Like, what are the memory that was the most salient that you can think about for your life, right?
Mhm.
So you kind of look at the money memory. Then you look at the money models. Who modeled money to you? The direct or the indirect, and all of that develops your money story, right? Like the story that you have around money. Is money in abundance? Is money in is it scarce? Is it not available to me? We create whatever that is, and
Mhm.
that particular money story will impact what our patterns are with money. Even when we're a lot older, even when it doesn't even make sense anymore, we'll still have that same money story. And it could be something simple, and this is in mind, but I'll just give you like an example.
Mhm.
You might have had a parent who got paid on the first of the month, right?
Uh-huh.
And that could be like the memory, like, I wait until the first. Could have been
Mhm.
the line that was always said to you. Just wait until the first. Wait until the first.
Right,
And
right.
so your mind actually like developed this story that people only have money like one day of the month, right? They don't even realize it
Uh-huh.
subconsciously,
Uh-huh.
like, I gotta wait until the first of the month. And then now you're a person who gets paid twice, right? You have two paychecks. But now your mind thinks like that, right? So
Mhm.
what you'll do is you'll find yourself your first paycheck will spend it on the most expensive things, right? Your mortgage, your rent, and all that kind of stuff, and then you'll
Mhm.
feel broke, right? You
Oh,
have that
wow.
feeling of scarcity that you're used to, that's
Yeah.
actually familiar to you, right? Based on getting paid only on the first, right? Like that same thing. You're used to feeling broke for a time period, and
Mhm.
then woo, now more money comes, you
Mhm.
know. And
Mhm.
what you might do with that second check is spend it, a little bit haphazardly because you're like, "Ooh, I was broke for so long," and then you just go start spending that money, and then you end up
Uh-huh.
finding yourself back at zero again until the next
Wow.
check.
Wow.
So that
Not
pattern of
even recognizing the source of that, why you
not
do
even
that.
recognizing the
Mhm.
source,
Big
yeah,
one. Ooh,
and
uh-huh.
it's just as simple as people always used to say that to you as a child, right? And so
Mhm.
you learn to have that yo-yo kind of experience with money,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's how our money story can develop our money patterns. And you could be 30,
Uh-huh.
40, 50 years old, still with
Right.
that same pattern, even though it happened so long ago, right?
Oh, good point. Yeah.
That's good. That could be it. Now, for me, I grew up in deep East Oakland. If y'all know about Keisha Cole and you know about like, Too Short, right? That was the environment and the community that I grew up in. I often say I could be a little bit more, refined, you know what I mean? Because our Kamala Harris, the vice president, also is from Oakland. However, because I grew up in that kind of community, what ended up happening is that I actually had a lot of like people who were like suffering with drugs in my family.
Mhm.
I also my grandma was like the payee for different people as well.
Mhm.
So what happened at a very very young age, I actually used to balance and manage people's money very
At a
young,
young age. Wow.
very young age. So I might have been almost like 9, 10 years old. People would actually say to me, they knew I was good with money. I was very good with math. That's how it all started. I was always
Okay.
good with math. I was always curious about money. And so I remember my mom would pay something and then I would be like, well, why did it say $2.99, but you had to pay $3.24? I don't understand what that happened. And I would ask questions, and I was like,
Okay.
oh, there's taxes. And so those were things that like, my mind would just be curious about. So I was already
Yeah.
naturally inclined to having some of those like curious questions that I wanted to get answered, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, people would say like, "Oh, you're better with money. Hold my money." So that I actually literally had a cousin
So
older
you
than
were like a bank.
I was like a bank. So I have an older cousin. My mom didn't have me until she was 41 years old. And so because she was an older mom, all of my cousins were like my second cousins, and they already had kids my age
Wow.
in my life. And so my second cousin who deals with substance use, she would say, "Here, hold my money." So this is a woman who has a child my age. So this is not like she's grown up, you know.
Mhm.
And I would have an envelope at that time. And she would say, "I need $20." And I would subtract the 20. You know what I mean? I'd be like, "Okay, now you have this." And I learned, and I don't know how I learned this exactly, and it may not have been because I really understood it, but I knew that I also could take my cut too, right? And that's what actually a bank really does, right? You know what I mean? Like takes a little fee from the
Wow.
energy. So I knew, I was like, she don't pay attention to her money. I was like, I'm gonna take this, gonna be my cut. You know what I mean? For the fact that I'm like helping her out with her money. So that's how that started at that age. Okay. Then just based on my like childhood, it led me to becoming a psychologist,
Mm-hmm.
of course, because I saw a lot of like mental health issues within my family as well as my community.
Mm-hmm.
And so I ended up becoming a psychologist. And one of my first jobs, my real job, like I got started getting paid jobs, was working with foster youth.
Mm-hmm.
And it was transitional age foster youth. So they would be like 16 through 21 years old,
Mm-hmm.
transitioning out of care.
Mm-hmm.
And even at one point, they actually extended it out where it went up to like 24 years old for them. And I started looking at these kids at like 18 years old. And
Mm-hmm.
all of a sudden, there was a transition period where at one point, 18 was like the cutoff. They were just out on the street by themselves.
Wow. Ooh.
Like, just completely like no extra money, no nothing.
Oh,
You know
that's
what I mean?
terrible.
Yeah, it was horrible. And I remember even a client asking me like, help me get on social security so I can just have
Wow.
like income that is something
Yeah.
that is available. And I remember telling her no, because I didn't want her to get stuck in a
Yeah.
negative cycle
Yeah.
of social security. And that
Mm-hmm.
was the only thing she had and not able to ever work. And she's 18. You know what I mean? I don't
Right.
want to do that to her.
Right. She doesn't know about the consequences. Nobody ever told her.
Nobody ever told her, right?
Yeah.
Like,
That
so
was the only option she knew about.
only options. So it actually started with them, where I was like, well, I need to teach them how to budget. Like, what are they going to do?
Mm-hmm.
And here and there in foster care, they would often give them like gift cards to go grocery shopping, different things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would take them grocery shopping, but we would create budgets before we actually went,
Wow.
with it. So that was just part of like what I would do with them, because I noticed it was like a skill that they were lacking. And I was
Yeah.
like, well, whoever teaches them this? This was something I started thinking like, well, who would ever teach them? If
Wow.
no foster parent ever teaches them, who's going to ever interrupt their pattern? They'll never know.
Oh,
So this same 18-year-old will be 30, 40 years old one day, still not knowing, because who
right.
would ever teach them?
Right.
So that's what kind of started to happen in my younger start of my private practice, not private practice, just in regular working.
Mm-hmm.
And so then later I ended up getting into private practice.
Mm-hmm.
Now my private practice shifted the demographic, where I had older adults versus like these young adults in there. And I realized they were having similar stresses. I mean, I could just name so many of them, right? So those who were like, looking for retirement was coming up. There were issues of like even couples, like couples having dynamics where neither one of them is really good at saving. You know what I mean? But then it's like, I'm a little better than you, right?
Right.
So
That tension. Yes. Uh-huh.
so those dynamics were starting to happen. And I was like, oh my goodness. And so I actually started with them, like my regular private practice clients, and saying like, well, let's just take a session and like look over your finances, right? Because it got to this point where it's like, we can't even move past it, because I don't understand. I don't understand the full picture, right? And I
Right.
think if I was able to see it, I can help them. And so it moved into that. And then that morphed more so into, there's a lot of people who need this. And
Yeah.
I actually love and enjoy talking about finances where other people don't, right?
Right.
But I do have a knack for not making people feel judged for whatever they're feeling and stuff like that. So I was like, I can go ahead and do this. And so I created, courses. I have one-on-one sessions for people to just talk about what's going on with your finances and
Yeah.
how do we like overcome the emotional stuff.
Yeah.
And so I've been doing that for about 8 or 9 years.
Wow.
In my practice.
Yeah.
And then I learned more information around life insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was like, wait, I could also become a licensed life insurance agent, understanding, I never even thought about getting an additional license, right? I'm a psychologist, good enough,
Right.
right? But I was like, oh, I could do this. It's pretty straightforward for me. I
Mm-hmm.
was like, I can become a life insurance agent. And so I'm now able to add an additional thing that I can help my clients with, that I feel is something that's not taught enough within our community. Like, how does
Right.
life insurance works, and how should we, help it, how it can help our money grow. So I was
Yes.
like, I'm going to add this too. And so I've been doing
Yes.
both of those for about 8 or 9 years at this point.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So the part about life insurance too, that what we should
Mhm.
talk about in financial masterclass,
Yes.
is that sometimes our life insurance is tied to our job. And
Yes.
so the importance of figuring out, is it tied to your job or not? And if you
Yes.
leave that job, are you able to take that life insurance with you? So again, we covered
Yes.
that in the financial masterclass.
Hmm.
So for Black women who are in a situation where they have been avoiding money, right?
Hmm.
They realize they want to leave the toxic job. What's one nugget from the financial masterclass that you can give about maybe the most important thing for her based upon where she wants to go?
Yeah, the most important and the thing that people avoid the most would be the knowing your numbers. that that is actually, to me, the most important thing. And I'll say, I call it having a financial health day, and I think that's something that everybody from this live could definitely take. Have a financial health day. It could be a full day, or it can be even just an hour, but dedicated time to say, I'm going to go check out my numbers,
Okay.
right? How much money do I make? Like knowing that part, and understanding how much money am I spending. Now, when I say to do this, is that I don't want you to be making up the numbers. That's why I want you to go to your bank statements and really look, because we swipe so frequently
Yes, we
that
do.
we have no concept of how much stuff we like. If I ask somebody, like, how much do you go to Starbucks? They'd be like, oh, it's probably like $100 a month. That's what they'll tell me. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay. But if we look at your actual statement and you go there every single day, and you don't just get a coffee, but you get a pastry every single time, right? You know what I mean? Like, if you look at that, you're like, well, we're already at $50 a week. So you're over $100 that you just told me.
Right.
Right. So it's
Right.
like stuff like that. That's just Starbucks, right? Maybe you're at your job and you start noticing, like, in the middle of the day, I always tend to need extra coffee,
Mhm.
because you're so stressed,
Right.
right? We talked to somebody who said Red Bulls, right? Like, you're like,
Right.
oh, let
Ooh,
me get this Red
yes.
Bull. I've heard a lot of people say Cokes, really be like, I need a Coke in the middle of the day. So then you
Right.
find yourself going to go grab something for that caffeine boost, but you
Mhm.
like, oh, let me get a little snack while I'm there too. But you
Right.
don't notice you do it every day.
Oh,
You know what I
yes.
mean? And so
Uh-huh.
then those are things that are like, that escape you because they don't sound like that much. Like, okay, a couple dollars, it's only $5. Like, it doesn't seem like a lot,
Mhm.
but all of this stuff adds up, right?
Right.
So very important to kind of know your numbers in that area. And then, after knowing those particular numbers, then you want to look at, like, what's going on at your job too. So, like, let's look at your health insurance. What are they covering? You want to actually go look, because sometimes we
Right.
just pick whatever, or we just roll over into whatever they gave us from year to year.
Mhm.
What are they offering with it? Want to understand, have you ever looked at your 401k? Because most
Mhm.
people don't look at their 401ks. They don't look at what their pensions are. Honestly, like, it's like, I would say a good 80% of people never even go check. Okay. And so it's time for you to check,
So
what's going
true.
on. Is it going up? Is it going down?
And do you have to supplement that with something else? Like, what is
Yes.
the amount really gonna be?
Yes. And even the
Uh-huh.
idea of people staying in the job for pensions, right? And not realizing that the pension is not going to even give you that much. Like, I can recall one of my good friends, I always, like, I laugh
Deep
at her.
point.
She found her pension and realized she was going to get $6 a month for her pension.
No, stop
Yep.
it.
I am not playing. She's going to get $6 a month for her pension. Now imagine you staying at a job. She had been at that job
Oh
for,
my
like,
gosh.
because she's in her late 30s. She had been in her job since she was in her 20s in the biotech industry, right? This is like a
Wow.
nice, industry. You know what I mean? But it turned out that it would be $6 a month.
That's
Okay?
insane.
That is insane.
Right.
Even if you are in a position that you're, like, at a relatively good job, I want you to know what even relatively good jobs give, right?
Yeah,
So even relatively good jobs are doing about maybe like $1,500 to $2,000 a month. Now, how much do you spend?
for real.
You know what I mean? And so you're staying at this job for this $1,000-$2,000 a month that you may or may not get, depending on if something happens with the job or
Right.
anything like that.
And it's not enough to
And it's
sustain
not
you anyway.
enough. It's not
Yeah.
enough. You were going to still have to supplement it in any kind of capacity
Wow.
anyway, right?
Okay.
Social Security. Now you're waiting. I'm gonna wait till Social Security. That can be a thing. If you were to actually look at Social Security statements, they actually tell you that it's going to be less money in there later on, right? So it says like around 2033 that Social Security could be exhausted.
Ooh.
So most of us, if you think about 2033, is not long from now.
Right.
Like we're in 2025 right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's saying that it might not even be there for people, right? That's why it's important to understand the elections and kind of a little bit of what's going on.
Yeah.
Are they going to keep Social Security or not? Because you need to know that. That's part of you trying to bank on for your future.
Yes.
Right?
So you might say, again,
Yeah.
I gotta set this job for retirement, but you need to know what is actually your anticipated amount that you'll be getting at retirement.
Yes. Right.
Yeah.
And it may not be that much, or even if they're going to give you a lump sum and somebody like, oh my God, $100,000, that's a lot. But if you are making 50, 60,000 a year, is $100,000 a lot? Is even $300,000 a lot? I mean, 300 sounds like a lot,
right?
But if that's for the rest of your life, you have to manage $300,000, and you haven't even been a good manager recently, right? How are you going to keep 300 for the rest of your life from 65 even all the way until like 95?
Right.
And you're used to living on a budget of at least 50, 60,000, if not more, per year.
Yeah.
Right. So you want to pay attention to those things on a financial health day. Just get familiar with your numbers.
Yeah. Oh, that's very sobering. So checking our numbers, that is one of the home assignments, one of your activity assignments during the financial masterclass. And something else that I co-present with Dr. Roche at the financial masterclass, but I'll talk about like the fears and replace your income, multiple streams of income. But it's interesting. Every time I hear Dr. Roche speak, I'm like taking notes. I'm following up on stuff, because even before I think about before I start working with you, I didn't know the difference between term life insurance and whole life. And there's so many different avenues, but I had no idea. So as Black women are moving forward with, as you say, getting our financial house in order, what does that really mean? What does that really mean? Getting our financial house in order.
What it means to me, right? So I'm sure it's like, subjected to other people, but really getting your financial house in order is, I'm going to say it again, know your numbers. You're going to hear me say that a lot. It's somebody just having some awareness of what's going on with their finances, making sure that they make enough money to cover their expenses. You want to make sure that's happening, that you have a bucket of money somewhere that is sitting, right? The world calls it an emergency fund. I call it an abundance fund. I want to live out of abundance. So you should have, 3 to 6 months of your expenses saved, right? Like sitting somewhere, not being touched, right? That is like a great financial house if you have that going on. Even if you have some extra money that is even being invested. And so investing would be like, actually stock markets. Maybe when you first get started, they're called ETFs, which are exchange traded funds, which is like a group of companies that just come together. And, and it can be like your Apples and like, your Google stuff that, but you get like you get some shares in just a group of funds, and that can just help your money grow over time. Just so you'll have a little bit more. You'll make sure that you have life insurance. Life insurance for me is like the foundational piece, right? Out of every what if, that's going to happen, y'all. When, we don't know, but it's going to happen. So we want to be like, have that foundational piece, because it really impacts our family, and friends, what happens, so make sure you have that life insurance in place. So I think those are like the major things. And also that you're tackling that debt, right? Tackling the debt. As long as you have good credit, I feel good about that, right? It's okay. There's a difference between good debt and bad debt, right? You know what I mean? And so like, some debt, you might maintain, and that's okay. And that's why I say understanding interest rates are so important, right? And it was a person who wanted to pay off their student loans, right? Now, a lot of people hate their student loans, or they don't want it, or whatever the case is. But oftentimes student loans, their interest rates are like 4%, not a lot. You know, we
Mm-hmm.
had it so many years ago, like 4%,
Mm-hmm.
compared to your consumer credit card, which is easily like 17%, 20%,
Right.
right? So which one is going to matter that you pay more on?
The
You know what I
credit
mean?
card.
Like the
Yeah.
credit card. But if you don't understand the difference between that, it's not just debt, it's like it has
Yeah.
different interest rates and
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's not going to impact you as negatively. You know, if you don't pay your student loan, it'll impact you. But if you
Mm-hmm.
pay on it, like pay smaller amount, it won't mess up your credit or
Mm-hmm.
anything like that. But if you
Mm-hmm.
don't pay this credit card, it's going to mess up your credit, which means
Right.
mess up your buying power currently, you know? And so we don't know that, right? We don't
Mm-hmm.
know the difference between those things. And so even when you're trying to tackle your debt, how are you going about doing it? You know, a
Yeah.
lot of us don't know that 0% APR, great opportunity to consolidate debt. You know, you might want to look for a 0% APR credit card so
Mm-hmm.
you don't have to pay interest for a long time,
Hmm.
right? And a lot of us don't know about even doing that. Like,
Right.
because the interest is what's like killing you. If you're paying
Right.
like $200 in interest every single month, you're like,
That's
why
outrageous.
I never can get out. It's because
Right.
it's that much, you know?
Right. Right. If you look at your credit card statement when it says if you paid a minimum amount, it will take this amount of years and this is how much
Yes,
extra you'll be paying, as opposed
yes.
to you pay this. That is sobering. That is sobering. Okay.
Right,
Oh,
exactly.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah,
So let's talk a
yeah.
little bit before we go into the financial masterclass a little bit more
Okay.
about how do we as Black women reframe our relationship with money? How do we do that?
Mm. How do we reframe? So I would say, I mean, I'm all about affirmations, and so I do believe that you need to affirm like a different relationship because we
Yeah.
talk to ourselves all the time, regularly. So you might be like, oh my God, there goes another bill. Oh, I can't. Every time I try to save, something always happening to me. Like we always are saying these phrases, and we're like speaking death, right? They say like life and
Right.
death is in the power of the tongue, right? And that's
Yeah.
speaking death to it, compared to like you deciding to affirm yourself, right? And you can, I mean, sometimes I say I make money easily and effortlessly.
Yes,
That's
I've been
like one
saying
of
that,
my
girl. I've been
yes.
saying that.
I love, I make
Yes.
money easily and effortlessly. That can be a thing. I sometimes will say, I love money and money loves me. That's why I want to come over here. Okay. You know, one of my favorite songs, we talk about this financial masterclass that we're going to be doing some dancing and different things like
Yes.
that. But one of my favorite songs is I feel like money is attracted to me. Right.
Ooh.
And I say it all the time. Right. And they say they come around like honey because I'm fly like a bee. Okay. I'm
Ooh.
like, come on. I just love it. Okay.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
I just want money to be attracted to me. Don't say like you're bad with money. Stop, take
Uh,
that out of your
or
vernacular.
that you're bad with math, right?
Or that you're bad with
A lot of
math.
us have
Right.
heard that, right? We've heard our
Yeah.
mothers say that. And we say, I'm bad with math.
No,
Yeah.
yeah. Now you're just taking on,
Yeah.
what was their issues, right? Becoming like a generational like pattern. And so, yeah, so you can break those generational, like, thought patterns and talk, generational talk, I'll say,
Right.
and replace it with some more level of faith talk versus fear talk.
Mm.
And you can start to say, things that will attract money into your life, versus things that repel, money, right?
Yeah.
Like just even saying I'm open to opportunity, I'm expecting prosperity in my life, I'm
Mm.
always going to have more than enough to pay my bills. Those are things that you want to just say. Even another one, like money comes to me in expected and unexpected ways, right? Like,
Ah,
so I
ah,
might just go outside and some money just show up, okay?
yeah.
Unexpected.
Yeah.
So money comes to me expected and unexpected ways.
Yeah.
And so I think that that's how you really kind of change your relationship with money.
Mhm.
It's going to take time,
Yeah.
to unlearn bad habits,
Yeah.
but you have to be willing to put the work in to do so,
Yeah.
because you want to change, you want to see something
Yeah.
shift in your life, so you
Yeah.
have to kind of start that process, but be kind with yourself, right? Show yourself compassion, because
Mhm.
anytime that we're trying to change anything, right, relapse is on its way. Okay. Like
True.
you might relapse,
Right.
but ideally our goal is when it comes down to relapse is that you're not going to stay in the bad situation too long, right? You're
Right.
going to jump back in there a little bit faster,
Yeah.
right? And it won't happen as frequently,
Yeah.
so you might notice yourself to say like, okay, well, I was ignoring my money for like a week. Well, I'm gonna
Mhm.
get back on it again,
Right.
right? Compared to you might have done it for months before, You know what I mean? So now this is okay, right? Like
Yeah.
you're getting better. So we're looking for progress, not necessarily perfection.
Yeah. And I think sometimes, and I heard this on one of the women, one of the lives talked about uh, a fear of making a mistake. And so, one
Yes.
of the benefits of being in the financial masterclass is that you're learning from Dr. Roche, who's an
Yeah.
expert. So,
Yeah.
it's less likely that you're going to make some financial mistakes with
Yeah.
getting your financial house in order. So, that's another thing.
Yeah.
And let's talk about the financial masterclass more in depth.
Yes,
Okay.
let's.
So, who is the financial masterclass for? Who's an ideal person to come to the financial masterclass?
I would say Black woman, because we're
Yes.
very clear on that. Okay.
Yes.
Right. Like, so a Black woman who is finding themselves, like at their job, feeling like the demands of the job, maybe even like interpersonal relationships of the job
Mhm.
is, getting to them in a serious way. They
Mhm.
notice that like, this level of stress is impacting like, even their outside of job relationships, right? Maybe you're like finding yourself more irritable, maybe more agitated, bringing that home to your partner, bringing that home to your children.
Yeah.
Maybe you find yourself exhausted constantly, right? Like, so you're exhausted all the time. You don't have time for anything else, can't even think of anything else, not able to sleep well. So you're exhausted, but can't sleep. Right?
Right.
You know what I mean? Exhausted, but can't sleep.
Yeah.
Waking up in the middle of the night, finding yourself, stressed out about what this job needs, right? So they're taking
Yeah.
even your sleep from you because
Yeah.
there's all of these to-do lists of what's going on there. You're questioning yourself of your own identity and what you're capable of completing, right?
Mhm.
And so all of those things, like where you are, and
Yeah.
at this point, you're like, okay, the only constant here is the fact that I'm at this job.
Right.
Job is like toxic, you know what I
Yes.
mean? This
Yes.
and it's starting to spill over into other aspects of my life, you
Yes.
know.
Yes.
And you
Okay.
want to definitely, come to our financial masterclass.
Okay. So is the financial masterclass for Black women only for Black women who are in toxic jobs?
Mhm.
And if they have to be a certain education level or certain profession?
No. So you don't have to be in a certain like education level or profession, right? Or any particular job, but we want you to be somebody, and you don't even have to technically be at a toxic job. Now I will say that is like, what we're really like leaning to. And so the conversation is going to be from the level of toxicity. But if
Mhm.
you are a person who's like, I just need to get financially well, right? I'm a person who I am ready to leave this job. Like, this place is no longer serving me in the way
Mhm.
that it once did.
Mhm.
And maybe it's not toxic per se, but there's something more inside of me that I am looking for in my life. And I still need to get my finances in order to make that scary step to move forward in my life. Then the
Mhm.
financial masterclass would still be for you as well.
Okay. And what if somebody has already left their job? They've already retired.
Yeah. So even if we left, right, you left without having necessarily any coaches to kind of help you through the process. I often like, think about you, Dr. Kamani, who talks about like, I've been gone for 2.5 years, and
Mhm.
the healing process, ing, is an
Right.
ongoing thing, right?
Yes. Yes.
So like, you still might need some support around the healing process. And you may also still not having learned any like financial like skills. So you're like,
Mhm.
okay, well, I need to make this money that I have taken. I've already made this decision, but how do I allow this money to last me, for the rest of my life?
Yeah.
What are some different skills that I should be like, thinking about right now? And
Mhm.
we'll cover that also in the financial masterclass.
Yes, and I just want to let everybody know, I know I've stressed this before, but I can't stress it enough,
Mhm.
that privacy consideration is that none of the participants will be on camera. Your name will not be listed. So only Dr. Roche and I will be on camera because we know we don't want people in our business and trying to find out we're
Mhm.
trying to leave a job. So don't worry about that. If there's a comment or question you want to make during the masterclass, then you can change your name in the platform. Okay. So it's going to be Zoom webinar. You will not be seen, name will not be listed. So, what is, let's say, one of the main mindset shifts that a Black woman who's coming into the masterclass, what can she expect after leaving the masterclass? What's one mindset shift?
Yeah. So, you're going to get a couple, right? And I think and you kind of get them through different sections as we kind of cover different areas.
Mhm.
But the thing that I like to hear the most is like, after we even just do the vision exercise, I love people to feel like it's possible, right? And feel like at peace with
Yes.
the thought of that vision. A lot of people often will say that just after just even just the vision aspect of the class, you know. And so I think that's what really happens at the end of our class more than anything. Like the top thing is
Mhm.
that, you know, like it's possible and I'm going to be okay. Right. The
Yes.
fact that you're able to say that to yourself is going to make you feel like more comfortable moving forward with
Yes.
making this decision, you know?
Yes. So true. So true. So we talked this whole time about little nuggets from the
Yes.
masterclass. So can you just give an overview about all that we'll be covering during the financial masterclass for Black women? Again, January 8th and 9th. So it's this week. Okay.
Yes.
7 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Central, 4 p.m. Pacific time. Again, privacy. You will not be on camera. Your name will not be listed. Information about registration is going across the screen. It's also in the description section. So can you give us just the overview, the high level overview
Yes.
of the masterclass?
Whew, yes. So it is exciting. Okay. So, number one thing is that it's exciting. We're going to enjoy ourselves. We're going to have fun. We're
Yeah.
creating community there. You have two, not one, but two Black licensed clinical psychologists that are going to be a part of it. It's going to be on January 8th and 9th. So it is here. It's almost here. So make the decision right now. But on the January 8th and 9th, it starts at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 6 p.m. Central Time, as well as 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So you want to come for that. We're going to cover literally the building blocks from A to Z of how you're going to get through from where you are now to actually leaving this job and having a feeling of financial wellness. So we're going to cover identifying and confronting fears, right? Because that is one of the things that's going to hold you back, right? How do we manage our fears and our anxieties that are coming up? We're going to do the vision. I kind of, mentioned that a little bit about the vision exercise so we can even see what does that look like to even be on the other side of this. So we're going to have the vision exercise. We're going to cover like basic financial literacy. So we're going to like learn all this information around inflations and taxes and how does that work and even risk, understanding our retirement vehicles. So we're going to make sure we cover those things. And then another area that we notice that people are always fearful of is about those good benefits. What are we going to do about those? So we're going to cover like how do you manage your health insurance, right? How do you like go about looking at it and potentially replacing your health insurance in order to leave your job? We're going to cover like your pension. What do you do to roll it over? We're going to cover life insurance and like understanding it, the different types. How do you get some more outside of your job? So we get the life insurance together. Then Dr. Kamani comes in and makes sure you know that you get multiple streams of income, replace your income, because that's another part. Like, wait, well, what am I going to do to make money
Yes.
afterwards? And
Yes.
so we're going to make sure that we cover that as well, like how to replace your income in the class. You will be given a workbook. Somebody mentioned to us like, oh my God, I'm not good at like, getting all this information and taking notes, but that's why we created a workbook for you.
And replays. And you get the
And
replays
replays,
after.
right. So you get a workbook and replays. But the great thing about the workbook is that we make sure that, you highlight the things that you want to take action on right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's another thing that we do is we make sure we create a financial timeline. So
Mm-hmm.
depending on where you are on the continuum, excuse me, my voice got me. But the continuum of the finances, if you need to leave immediately, we tell you what to do.
Mm-hmm.
If you have 6 months, we tell you what to do.
Yes.
If you have a year, we tell you what to do. Some of you guys that are on that continuum is like, I just want to leave. I need to get ready for retirement. And that's not until for 2 years or so. You would still have like the blueprint of what you need to do to get prepared for that. So we make sure that is happening as well, just to make you feel very confident about your move.
Exactly. Very, very well stated. And
Yeah.
to think about, as Black women, it's very important for us to get prepared. So again, it doesn't matter when you want to go. And we want to stress you coming to the masterclass is you getting prepared. It's not you come to the masterclass and the expectation you leave tomorrow, okay?
Right.
Unless you're in immediate danger physically and or psychologically. We never stress that, right? But again, look out for your health. We're talking about how to plan and how to be prepared. Again, you have the replays. You can go back and look at it as many times as you want to.
Yes.
And the masterclass really is a blueprint, right? So we're giving you a blueprint. So it shortcuts the process of you trying to do all this
Mhm.
research on your own that may not be correct because you're trying to
Right.
get it off the internet and all the kind of stuff, trying to piece it together. Where you get
Yes.
all the information all at one time. But Dr. Roche explains particularly the financial information in such a way that is so easy to understand. It's easy. It doesn't feel overwhelming. As she mentioned before, there's lightness involved. We
Yes.
dance, we sing, and you're in a community with other Black women. So you know that you're not alone. Now, I do
Yeah.
want to say this. As Black women, we have to be mindful that we might be in a situation. So it might be a job, might be a relationship, it might be any life change. But again, we get so fearful sometimes that we avoid. I really encourage you to walk through that avoidance. So even the avoidance you might have of registering for the financial masterclass, because we're talking about money, okay?
Mhm.
So knowing that the financial masterclass is going to help you, and we are here to walk with you through the fear, okay? So don't
Yeah.
let your avoidance about money keep you from registering for the financial masterclass, okay? Because
Right.
that's not going to help you. So Dr. Roche, let's say there's a Black woman who's watching, and
Mhm.
let's say she is experiencing, like, oh, I think I want to go, but I'm
Mhm.
scared. Like she is experiencing that
Yeah.
financial, the
Yeah.
avoidance about the financial masterclass. What words of wisdom could you offer to her?
Yeah. So, first of all, take a deep breath, right? Just take a deep breath. I think it's so important that a lot of times we just don't allow ourselves to breathe because we're always in such a tense, anxious state,
True, true.
even around money. So, take 5 deep breaths, and I want you to think about what are the things that you're in need of right now. So, you're in need of like wanting to experience peace right now in your life. You
Mhm.
know that, there might be something on the other side of this, but you're unsure. If that's what started to happen for you, know that you want to just take a bet on yourself, right? Because this financial masterclass is taking a bet on you, right?
Right,
Like, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna get into the right environment with the right people that's going to give you the resources. So the thing that normally causes us like fear is because we don't know what to do. Like,
right.
but you're going to get the knowing, and the steps on how to do what's necessary in order to make that move. Right.
True.
So you want to make sure you just realize that, even sitting with yourself saying like, I deserve this. Right. You may want to affirm that over your life. Like, I'm worthy of having
Mhm.
something different. I don't have to settle for what they're giving me. I'm more than what is happening here at this job. So I
Mhm.
need to go ahead and make this like move for me.
Yeah, so true, so true. And also, just to put out there, because
Mhm.
I've heard a number of Black women say, with this with following the election, a lot of women, Black women, are very anxious about what's going to happen. A lot of Black women have lost their jobs or about to lose
Mhm.
their jobs because of the change in administration. What would you say to these Black women? Let's say Black women who've lost their jobs due to the change, and also Black women who are so worried about, they don't know what's going to happen with the change of
Mhm.
administration. What would you say to them in relation to the financial masterclass?
Yeah, the financial masterclass is set up to be preparation, right? To prepare for like the unknown, right? In the what ifs, that may happen. So we don't know what's going to happen, based on, this administration that's going to be coming in. So you want to be prepared for
True,
that, right?
true.
For those of you guys who have already been laid off and you may be in that, a fearful state of what's next, then we're going to address that, right? As we are addressing like replacing your income and multiple streams of income, we're already going to help you figure out how to tap into those gifts that you already have.
Yeah.
Maybe you were narrow in your gifts and only using one of those gifts at that job, but maybe you had a ton of skill sets at that job and you don't even realize them because you haven't even taken the time to think about it. So in the
Mm,
financial masterclass, we're going to make sure we uncover those and discover those for
yeah,
you.
yeah,
And give you, the blueprint on like, let's get started and what's going to help you out for the next stage of your life, next phase of
right.
your life.
Right, right. So, right, there is a lot of uncertainty right now. But again, when we just stay still and we don't prepare, now
Mhm.
we're even more thrown off guard. So, I would say this time is even more essential to
Yeah.
really get ourselves prepared because we don't know what's going to happen. But at
Right.
least we'll know our different options financially and we
Mhm.
know where we stand financially. So, that's why
Yes.
it's so important to get our financial house in order. So, Dr. Roche, as we're
Yeah.
winding down, can you please share about additional services that you offer and
Yeah.
how? Oh, boom, boom, boom.
I was just about to say, I was like, I forgot the bonus, but I'll go ahead and I'll do it in the wrap up. I'll do it in the wrap up. I'll do it in the wrap up though.
Yes, tell about the bonus. So you get a bonus with the financial masterclass. So not only do you get 2 Black women licensed clinical psychologists, not only that, but you get a special bonus. What is the bonus?
Yes. So you also get a special bonus to have a one-on-one with me. It's so important that you have the opportunity in the space to talk about your individual circumstances. But the reason why you want to do that, with the financial masterclass is because now you are more informed, right? You've now gotten educated. Now you're able to ask specific questions, and you're not going to just use, the time as like a venting session, but you're going to use it as a session that is going to make sure that you have exactly what you need for your specific situation, and how to individualize and customize your own plan for you.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, and that goes along with what you're going to say. What are my additional services, right? So like, that is an additional service that normally, that is actually, I even can tell you the price for it, like it's a $500 fee to even work with me and to do the one-on-ones. So the fact that you even get it with the financial masterclass is already a given, what I mean, that you're getting all of that, right? With the financial masterclass. So you don't have to worry about paying for that. If it doesn't make sense, for you. If you want ongoing services, we're going to figure something out for you. But I do the one-on-one services. But additionally, having like the one-on-one services, of course, I'm a licensed life insurance agent. And so if you are curious and wanting to know, like, do I have the right life insurance? Do I need to upgrade my life insurance in some type of capacity? Then definitely contact me, because you can get on my calendar. I'm sure it'll be somewhere. You can work with drroche.com and get on my calendar, and let's talk a little bit more about, what's going on and how I can serve you in that area as well. And your family.
Fabulous. So I'll put all her information in the description section. Okay. So check that out. So I'm going to read the community chat and I'm going to wind down. So I don't know if I even said Happy New Year to everybody, but Happy New Year, everyone. Let's see. January is my month to assess my finances. Good. So the timing is perfect. Time is perfect for the financial masterclass. Let's see. Help. Somebody saying help. Okay. Hopefully this conversation starts to sharing information with you. But if you want to get more in-depth information, then register for the financial masterclass. Good evening. Blessings. Blessings from Charleston, South Carolina. Hello. Yes, you teaching good. Yes, indeed. Let me see. One thought would be to start a crowd fund with this group of women, and we support each other. Integrity is vital. That's something I would I would encourage somebody else. I don't know. I don't have the bandwidth for that. But
I know, right.
But I love the idea. Hi, I've been mamming for my team for a long time. And once I dial back, now my boss is saying that I'm not driven, or insinuating that I'm not driven. I spend a lot of time trying to cover everything. Yeah, that is truly a toxic job, because now we're talking about people are trying to put you in a certain role to take care of everybody. And it's an issue of boundaries. And we'll talk about this in the masterclass too, that, sometimes a job might try to put you in a certain position or try to invade your boundaries. Oh, I'm sorry. I saw this in the chat. You sign up by the information is on the screen about how to sign up. It's also in the description section of this video. Okay. So you just click the link and you do the checkout. It's as simple as that. Okay. So that's how you sign up. So boundaries. Can we talk about boundaries just a little bit?
So boundaries with the job, right? And they say we teach people how to treat us, and they often are saying that when they're referencing relationships, but it's very much so true even with the job, that you're teaching them. So maybe you in that state of like mamming everybody at the time, like you were a certain way. And so then when you started to stop doing it, you seemed brand new and different. But that is the boundary that we have to place at our job. We have to make a choice to say, what time am I off? Right. And make sure that you don't answer calls after that time. You're not answering emails, because once you decide to answer that phone call and you're off at 5 and they call it at 6:30.
Right.
Now they'll know that your time has been extended to 6:30.
True.
And so you have to teach them, no, I'm no longer available. And just because they call doesn't mean you have to answer, Because I often hear people say like, they be calling me and they be doing this and they be doing that, but you don't have to do like it back. Okay.
True.
So you
True.
want to go ahead and set your own personal boundaries for that. I often say people work through lunch. Don't work through lunch. You know what I mean? Take your break, you know, in whatever capacity that you can take it, whether you're eating or not eating. Okay. But make sure that you're just taking that break, that you're saying, I just want to look at this screen anymore, right? Just for your
Right.
own physical health, you know, that you're not in front, that that you still stood up today, that you stretched, you
Yeah.
know, like do some of those things that are just for your help, because they have to give it to you. Take those 15-minute breaks that they offer you. You know, make sure that you're like, you know, sleeping at night, you know, doing the right things for yourself while
Yeah.
you're at this particular job. And if the demands of the job go higher, because it's what a lot of times happens for people is demands of the job say you do 50 things, right? And you're like, we started only doing 20. That's way too much. Well, have integrity for yourself about what you know is possible to complete at the job and increase to that limit, but don't increase to their crazy limit. Right?
Yes.
You know what I mean? If you know it's not possible, because see, a Black woman will be like, what? I'm gonna do the best that I can, and you'll try to get to 50, right?
Right.
You will do 50, you know, and then find yourself feeling, stressed out, and then you've taught them that you can do 50. So now
Exactly.
the expectation has changed and shifted, that 50 must be done, right?
Exactly.
And so you have to really, like, take all of that in, because these jobs, they don't, they don't care about you. You like you just a number. They'll find somebody else. I think I don't know why Tyler Perry's. Have you watched the 688 or 6?
No, not yet. I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it
Oh,
yet. No.
watch that. Oh, you definitely gotta go watch it. But those of you guys who have, it's just that idea to me of like, Black women, we gonna come in and we gonna show up and we gonna show out to the
Right.
fullest, okay,
Right.
to the fullest, and then at the end, you know what I mean? People still not appreciate all that you have done, right?
Yes.
And so we are far from those times, and so make sure that you don't put yourself in those same positions right now.
So well stated.
Yeah.
And I also want to add the comment in the chat. I completely agree. Don't let them gaslight you. I was going
Yes.
to say that they are
Mhm.
gaslighting you, and it sounds like you may start self-gaslighting yourself now because you said
Mhm.
you spend a lot of time trying to cover everything. So now it's like, oh no, well, this is my role and I got to make sure I do all these things. No, recognize that they are gaslighting you. And now you're feeling the need to overextend yourself. That is
Mhm.
not your role to take care of people. You are hired to do a particular job. You are not there to take care and make sure that they're okay. And when they
Right.
start gaslighting you like that, that's a sign that something's off here. Something's off
Mhm.
because you're
Mhm.
even writing about it. So you know that that's not okay. So
Right.
start thinking about what your options are. And if you are kind of confused about what your options are, or you're starting to think about, maybe I need to start planning my exit, come to the Financial Masterclass, okay? So
Mhm.
everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't already registered for the Financial Masterclass for Black women, do so today before you
Yes.
forget and you'll be like, oh, dang it, I missed it. And there's an opportunity to gift a Black woman. So if you know of a Black woman who's in a toxic job, or maybe she might just need this financial wellness, she needs to get her financial house in order, you can
Mhm.
gift her as well. Same thing, you just click the link that's going across the screen, or you can go in the description section and click the link and you can gift her as well. Okay. So make
Yeah.
sure you register for the Financial Masterclass. Make sure that you share this information with other Black women and you can gift a Black woman. So don't forget that. Okay. I see the thank you. Okay. You're welcome. Let's see. The gaslighting makes me think I did something. Oh no, overworked
Mhm.
and have landed in the hospital. Also meds. No, sis.
Mm-mm. No.
No. Okay. So that's
For
a
mechanics.
sign. That's a classic sign that that job is harming you. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you're able to take a step back some kind of way, if you're able to take a leave or do something like that, and we talk about that in the Financial Masterclass about what your options might be when you're in a toxic job. So I really hope that you do come to the Financial Masterclass. As I said before, privacy consideration, we will not see the participants. You won't be on camera. Your name won't be listed. So the hope is that you see us at the Financial Masterclass. We won't see you. And again, please share this information with other Black women. You can share this video, share the link about the Financial Masterclass. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, also Dr. Roche has a channel. So I'll
Yes.
put all her information description section again. So please subscribe to our channel, turn on the notification bell so you know we go live or when we upload a video. And I hope that you will see us in the Financial Masterclass. Okay. Bye, everyone.
Bye.